This is Jennifer Reed, the Good Dietitian, and this is Healthy, Holy, Whole. And tonight, my wonderful guest is my good friend and registered dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist, Dena Hampton. And Dena has a wonderful background in nutrition. She taught me so many things when we worked together, and I'm excited to have her on so we can have this amazing conversation about diabetes and caring for people with diabetes when it comes to nutrition, as we are the nutrition experts. So Dena graduated with her master's in nutrition, dietetics, and health sciences from the University of Nebraska. As she completed her dietetic internship at the Ohio State University. She is a skilled registered dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist with over 7 years of experience in a variety of settings, including adult and pediatric, hospitals, acute care facilities, outpatient clinics, community-based organizations, and through her various work experiences, she has become proficient in creating individualized nutrition care plans on patients with nutritional needs and dietary restrictions and other health factors. And currently she is working at the Memphis Veterans Affairs Medical Center, specializing in outpatient care. So help me welcome Dena Hampton. Dena Hampton.
We got married, Jen.
We got married, yay. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
So good to see you.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you. You were on the top of my list when I was thinking about different podcasts and what could I do and who could I have? Because again, I learned so much from you when we worked together at Le Bonheur. I mean, you were such a great mentor to me. So tonight we're both certified diabetes care and education specialists. We're both working in a little bit of a different setting. You at the VA, myself with Baptist. I manage the Baptist diabetes program. And so I thought it would be really good to just sort of touch base on diabetes and nutrition care and get your thoughts and ideas on, so what are some of the challenges that you face or you see when it comes to trying to counsel and talk with patients who have diabetes?
Right. I think the biggest thing, especially in my population, we have a older population in the veteran population here in Memphis, is trying to get over that stigma. A lot of times they're used to seeing what their grandfathers had or their grandparents, their parents who may be deceased by now, when diabetes care and education wasn't at the standard that we have today. So getting over that stigma of, oh, I'm automatically going to lose a limb, or I can't eat anything and everything is all about the sugars and things like that. I think that's the biggest barrier when they're first diagnosed, is trying to get them over that stigma and in the new way of thinking.
I agree 100%. That is absolutely a barrier because you're right. Maybe 10, 15, even 20 years ago, this type of diabetes nutrition education was not available, or at least not available on a large scale like it is today. And even today, statistics from the ADA, American Diabetes Association, says only 6% of all patients diagnosed with diabetes ever get to education with us and this type of diabetes education. So if they don't know, that stigma is there in the sense that, I'm just automatically going to be sick and I'm going to have amputations. I would also say that then once we get past that, because sometimes what I see is just this absolute denial. So they will deny that, oh, I don't really have diabetes. Well, your A1C is 11. I'm sorry, but you do.
Right. I feel fine.
And then once we get past that,
yeah.
I was like, I feel like we should also change diabetes. We consider hypertension or high blood pressure the silent killer. I feel like diabetes is the same because you can have blood sugars of 600. You can be walking around with blood sugars as high as 600, not feel it, not know it.
Right.
And that can go on for a long time until your body gets to the point it's so sick that, okay, well, now you know something's wrong, but you've had those high blood sugars for a while. And I don't know if you have these same experiences as well, but so then once we get past the stigma of, okay, it's diabetes, and we've done a terrible job in society of blaming and shaming people who have diabetes because, well, we sort of tell them it's their fault. Well, you way too much, it's your fault. even though that's not always the case because there are over 200 genomes for type 2 diabetes. So not everybody's type 2 diabetes is related to weight, even though we still treat them that way. But then the other barrier for me is, okay, so I now have to dispel all of the nutrition and dietary myths that have been perpetuated by the fad diet community, which then also gets perpetuated and placed on our patients from doctors.
Yes. And you kind of mentioned it before, how only 6% of patients get to us. And I think a lot of the times we don't have that support from our physicians, and they're just so quick to say white's not right and give them a pill. And they're only in there for 15 minutes with a new diagnosis. And, they leave their patients scared. But I think if we were to have more interdisciplinary communication and really get those referrals to us so we can manage that, take more time with the patient, let them know more about the disease. Like you said, there's over 200 genomes. It's not your fault. It may be different things. We can definitely alter some lifestyle changes for you. We can make it work to fit you because we have the time and we have the expertise to do those things.
Right.
So I think it is really all about the interdisciplinary communication, not just straight out saying white's not right and giving them the metformin pill and sending them on your way. So it's really about that communication and that transition from just the diagnosis to the education that we really need to start doing a better job of.
I agree 100%. I'm like a one woman dietitian crusade
You
to
really are.
end fad diets. I am. And
You really
to the
are.
point where, that's why none of my friends or none of the ladies from church, nobody asks me for nutrition advice anymore. Because, Larry says when I'm wrong, I'm extremely humble. But he said, when you're right, you're kind of mean. So, but
You are
the
very
point is,
passionate, though.
I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just that, everything we know now, everything we know today, number one, nobody with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, ever has to be sick again. Nobody has to lose toes. Nobody has to lose their kidneys. Nobody
Right.
has to have a heart attack. Nobody has to go blind. None of those have to happen. But I will tell you that in doing my research for my presentation at conference this year, which you saw because you were nice enough to help me try to make it pretty and understandable. All of those things related to diabetes, all those chronic complications, kidney disease, heart disease, blindness, amputations, every single one of those complications are up, not down. And that's because they're not getting the whole picture. They're not getting all
Right.
this, because we know, scientifically speaking, and studies have proven that medication alone will not keep those blood sugars down.
Right.
And diets alone, I have got tons of stuff in front of me right now because, I'm a research junkie, and everything points to the fact that diets fail. And we have to keep in mind, diets were brought about for weight loss, not necessarily diabetes. And just losing weight does not always fix diabetes.
Right.
And so what if we just approached diabetes and other areas of our health with, okay, well, let's just try eating healthy and being a little more physically active. What if we stopped focusing just on weight and weight loss and focused on eating healthy and being well with our diabetes? Because it's, we have to be able, in fact, one of the things that we heard this week that came from a doctor, he told a patient to he didn't bring up whites necessarily. He just said, don't eat, or he said, eat dark carbs. And I was like, dark carbs? What is dark carbs? Is he going to the dark side?
I don't
Is he
know
talking
what
about
that
Star
means.
Wars? Does Darth Vader have
I
his
don't know
own
what
set
that
of
means.
carbs now? Are the whites
I
now,
have no idea
the
what that means.
Jedi? I don't either.
Right.
I don't either. I'm assuming he means, our browns are whole grains, but
Right.
he called them dark carbs. And so
Yes.
the patient was scared to death to eat. She didn't know what to eat. And I was like, we're just, so we're constantly having to peel back the layers of disinformation and junk science that we as Americans have been fed for years when it comes to diabetes, carbohydrates, how they affect our blood sugars, and all of those things. And so for me, sometimes that's one of the biggest barriers that I have to get over so that they understand I can eat carbs. My body needs them.
Right.
We just may not always need as much as we've been used to getting, but we still need them to get that absolute best blood sugar control.
Right.
And then I would also say, so you brought it up, so I'm going to kind of go there. So I also see that general practitioners don't always know those diabetes medications maybe as well
Right.
as, say, an endocrinologist or even a diabetes educator. And I know it's our business to know them. But because maybe if they don't know them so well or they're not super comfortable with some of those newer medications, what we see, and we know nationally because we talk about it, it's been a topic of conversation the last 2 years, kind of at conference, is physician inertia. So this idea that physicians are as willing to kick that diabetes can down the road sometimes as the patient. And so if your doctor is not concerned about your blood sugars, for one, if they're not concerned about your blood sugars, then why would our patients be concerned?
Right.
And so I don't always know if patients are non-compliant as much as they're like, they just don't know.
Right. And I think a lot of times, even with my patients, they'll be quick to put them on metformin, but then they won't order them a meter or teach them how to use it. So by the time they get to me, I'm like, what are your blood
Right.
sugars? What does your meter look like? Did you bring your meter into clinic? They're like, I've never been prescribed a meter. And I think another thing, especially like you talked about the medications, I feel like a lot of physicians will go all the way around the world not to put patients on proper, medications such as insulin. They have this stigma that if you're on insulin, you've done something completely wrong, but you'll be on all these, SG1s,
Yes.
SGL2s, GLP-1s, metformin, all these other pills that are costing them $150, $250 a month just because they don't want to be in a stigmatized that I'm on insulin, I must be doing something wrong. So again, even with the medications, they're still giving them a stigma. If you're on insulin, you must have done something wrong. It's your fault. This is the last step on the train. There's nothing else we can do for you. And so then patients are more scared to try those medications. And it's just kind of one of those
Yes.
things where the communication breaks down again and we have to come and re-educate all over again.
Yes, exactly. And what I find is most of the time when I actually explain to the patients, this is what your medication does, this is what it can do. When I explain to them and take the time to show them, okay, this is why we sometimes have to layer medications with diabetes. This is sometimes why we have to have more than one, because 8 organs in the body are being affected. Okay, so
Right.
we got to take care of more, so no medication for
Right.
diabetes fixes all 8. But if we know that some of them are better than others, and if we know that some of them specifically target particular organs and particular blood sugars, like some target AM or fasting blood sugars, and some target those postprandial or post-meal blood sugars.
Right.
So for my example for my patients is always, okay, if a person is diagnosed with, let's say, breast cancer, your cancer doctor is not going to come in and say, okay, we know you have breast cancer, but we're going to treat the pancreas and hope that it fixes the breast cancer.
Exactly.
We don't do that. But that's exactly what we do with diabetes and diabetes medications. We just, it's honestly a crapshoot. Give them medication, hope it works. I'll see you in 3 months. But I tell my
Exactly.
patients in the meantime, and you're right, they never get prescribed meters. They don't
No.
tell them. I have had, I had a patient call me the other week, and she was mad because she wanted the Libre. She wanted that continuous glucose monitor.
Right.
And she said she called the doctor's office, and she said that staff told her he isn't going to prescribe that for you because you can't afford it. And she's got so mad. She's like, well, how do they know I can't afford it? She's like, my husband works, my children works. I can buy stuff. And I was like, I know you can. And how does he know your insurance won't pay for it? I was like, you should
Exactly.
not have to fight your doctor to check your blood sugars. Because number one, who cares if it costs you? It's not costing him.
Right.
Except, so Kimberly, my other educator, she has
Yeah.
a theory. She has a theory as to why doctors don't want patients to check their blood sugars. Because if they check their blood sugars and their blood sugars are not working out, then they're likely to call the doctor back, and they're going to bother the doctor more often than just 3 months.
That's true. And like you said,
But
there's no one medication that's going to work for everybody. Like you said, it could be layering, it could be different things. Like you said, there's over 200 genomes of the diabetes, and there's different interventions that are going to work for different people. And it is sometimes a puzzle, but it takes time. And, physicians may not always have that time, and they kind of just say, oh, we'll see.
yeah.
So,
But the thing I always remind my patients is, so while we're working that out, if you don't check your blood sugars, number one, what happens in the morning versus after we eat, different processes. So so you could be high in the morning and okay after meals, or vice versa, or, you could kind of be all over the place. But knowing specifically where you're high, low, or normal also helps us to do better with your meal plan. Maybe we have to change something up,
right.
and also helps better with those medications. And so knowing those numbers is like, because while we're waiting for you to figure things out, high blood sugars are still doing permanent damage that we're not undoing.
Right.
And that's why it's important to know your individual blood sugars. That's why, I had some guy showed up, bless his heart, his A1C is over 10. Because from the day he was diagnosed, he never checked his blood sugars.
Yes.
And in all of his doctor's visits, nobody said anything. So now not only has he showed up with high blood sugars, but now he's also like stage 3 chronic kidney disease.
Yeah.
We can't fix that.
Yeah. There's no
So
reversing that.
knowing those, so knowing that, and I always feel like if patients, once my patients know, I also feel like they do take more time to, if they know that not paying attention to their blood sugars, not doing what they're supposed to do, is destroying their kidneys. Once they know that, then they're like, oh, okay, wait a second, I got to do this. I got to do this.
Right.
So I feel like had they known prior, then they might have had a better opportunity with those kidneys, so that we wouldn't be stage 3. And like with my mom, she's stage 3 kidney disease. Now her blood sugars have always been good. Her A1Cs have always been good. It's only been since she turned 70 that I think her highest has been like maybe a 7, but she's always stayed in the 5s and the 6s. But I couldn't, I couldn't get the doctor. I diagnosed her. Her doctor had never said anything to her about it. So then I was like, okay, well, can we put her on this medication? Because I know that this medication has been proven to slow the progression of kidney disease, and it's a diabetes medication.
Right.
I couldn't get one doctor in town, not one physician assistant. She went to like 3 or 4 different providers. Not one would prescribe this medication. Not one. And I was like, how do we practice that kind of care when it comes to diabetes, when diabetes is still the 5th leading cause of death in America?
Right. Right. And I mean, I think it's, one of our jobs, like you said, to give that patient autonomy to fight for themselves and to fight for their needs. But
Yes.
in order to know what their needs are, they need to be educated to be like, hey, you're right. I do need to check my blood sugars. Let me call my doctor and get a meter. I do need to know what these medications are doing to my body. Let me get more lab works more often. But if they don't know, like you said, then how are they supposed to fight for what they believe in or what they need done for their health or how to take care of themselves better so they can have more time with their families? And that's really what it's about, giving them time and living their best and feeling their best. And a lot of times it's not explained to them how they get to that stage.
Exactly. That's a huge point. I love the way you stated that. That's perfect. And right now in this pandemic, prior to the pandemic, we had, I think the statistic from Feeding America was something like 32 million families suffering from food insecurity. And obviously during this pandemic, that has exploded really. I have several other dietitian friends who are doing amazing work in food security and food pantries. But those people then are also adversely affected
Right.
with their diabetes because of the foods that they can choose and the foods that they have. And I think as dietitians, we're really the best ones to be able to help work them through that and give them the best advice, because so often, again, what they're going to get is, well, just don't eat the 5 whites. Okay, but those 5 whites is what I can afford.
Right. That's within the
So
boxes
I
I got
think
at the
that,
food shelter. Right.
right. So I think we as dietitians are more equipped, because that's what we go to school so long for, to help them to understand, because we need to help those people who are struggling with food insecurity right now to still be healthy with their diabetes. So one of my favorite things to do before COVID hit was, thanks to our friend Andrea. I was going down to when Andrea graduated with her nurse practitioner's license last year. So she took a job at the Memphis Health Center. And
Okay.
so she hooked me up. She asked me if I could come down and do free diabetes for them because they can't afford. So after work, I'd go down on my own time and I would do free diabetes classes. And it was the
Oh,
most
wow.
rewarding time, because I never used a PowerPoint. I took my play foods, because I love using them, and we would just sit around this big table, and the staff would stay, because the chief medical officer's like, man, Jeff, I didn't mean to stay this time, but once I start listening to you, she's like, I just got to stay, because they were hearing things that they'd never heard before. The
Right.
patients were hearing things they'd never heard before. So I wasn't making them feel bad, because I was like, look, I grew up in a single family home. Chef already was a chef in my house growing up. So I know what it's like to have limited funds. And I know what it's like to try to make healthy out of, maybe not
Nothing.
such healthy
Right.
foods. Um, so so I love working with that population, and I hope to get back down there again soon with them. So one more quick question
Sure.
for you, because see, time goes by fast. It's been an amazing conversation. I just love you so much. Okay, so as you know, when I was putting my presentation together, I had a little bit of information about the body mass index,
Mhm.
and because so during the doctorate program, that very first class, our very first assignment was, as dietitians, um, which do you prefer, the body mass index or ideal body weight? Which do you use most? Which is most accurate for you in your practice? Because I think most dietitians across the country don't really like the BMI because it's not super accurate. And so I had information on the BMI from Ansel Keys. So Ansel Keys was the physiologist who in 1972 started writing a lot of papers on the body mass index. And that's when it gained popularity. And that's when we sort of put it into place, because prior to that, we had the Metropolitan Life Insurance policies. So we did away with those and started using the body mass index. But in my most recent subscription of Today's Dietitian, there was an article about the body mass index, as to, is it actually racially biased as well? Because a Belgian scientist, developed it in 1832, and he based it on white males.
Right.
So women and people of color do not fit those numbers.
Right.
And Ansel Keys said himself, okay, I never meant for this to be used on individuals, only large epidemiological population studies, but it is what we use. It's the standard as to which their health status is assessed. So your thoughts on that, because that was just mind blowing to me to find that out, that it was based on white males.
Yes. And I think a lot of times, I think more people are starting to realize what's going on with the BMI. For example, With the Asian population, they've completely redone their BMI because they have smaller frames. And I think that's why a lot of dietitians prefer the ideal body weight, because they take into account body frames. And so certain populations like Pacific
Right.
Islanders or African Americans, they do have a larger body frame, more density in their bones. And so I think you have to take that into consideration, especially when you're using such a strong tool to base medications off of, based off a diagnosis or reasoning for
Right.
diagnosis and things like that. So I think people are starting to be more aware of it. And I think it's becoming a little bit more archaic use, but I think they are trying to adapt it. Like I said, the Asian population adapted it for their body frame size, and they came up with their whole new rating and ranking system for obesity based on Asian population. And I'm hoping with more research, we'll be able to do that for more, different sets of populations just based on their body frame size, historical weight statuses for that
Yes.
population. And I think that's one thing that we really do need to take into consideration. But I don't love BMI. I don't really tell my patients about BMI. My BMI is
Neither.
higher. And so
Mine is
I
too.
think, yeah, and I think what we really need to focus on, like you said before, is not just focusing on numbers, but how are you living your life? What are some other complications going on in your life? Are you on 20 medications? How can we get you some of those off? Just changing your BMI number
Yeah.
is not going to change those health factors that are really affecting your quality of life.
Absolutely. Well said. And it won't affect them. So what we notice is if there are positive impacts, it's short-lived and short-term. So you might lose enough weight to change a lot of those numbers, but it's very short-lived and short-term.
Yes.
So it's not changes that last past 6 months.
Right.
And so we have to find a way to make you healthy for the rest of your life and healthy with diabetes, and know that after you've had diabetes for a while, weight loss may not even have a positive impact on those blood sugars, because it's not the same
Right.
diabetes or disease that you had when you first were diagnosed. So
Right.
if we just could stop using BMI as much as we do, and stop looking at weight and people, and just start assessing, okay, how can we help you be healthy, and realize that, well, as dietitians, we're the experts. We can do that.
Right.
And getting the doctors to really sort of think of us as members of the team,
Exactly.
and not these outliers that are like, yeah, go ahead, you can go see them, whatever.
Right.
So wonderful conversation. I hope anybody that's listening got something out of it. I hope that that it was good information for everyone, and not just the two of us, because it was excellent for me, and it was just so good to see you. I know we have to be careful, even though we don't live far from each other. You're just basically on the other side of the
I am
road from
street.
us.
Exactly.
But we know that we have to be careful. We have to be careful during this time of the pandemic. We want to keep you and your family safe, and especially the new family member who is going to be coming. Thank you so much for being a part of this tonight, and so good to see you. And I hope that you continue to stay safe, and hopefully I will see you in the very near future. And just as remember, everyone, I didn't always know to do this, but if you see this video and you like it, please hit like and subscribe, because the only way for me to actually get my own YouTube channel is to have 100 subscribers. So please, if you liked it and you enjoyed it, hit subscribe and get us on YouTube so we can make a difference. All right.
Yes.
So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dena.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Talk
Thank
to
you.
you
I had a great
soon.
time. Okay.
Thanks. Me too. Bye.